Okay, how do we make this guy work? Well, first of all, it seems when I read this one that I need something called a location service. And it needs to be of the type Ilocation service. This lesson, let me just create these and then we'll talk about their placement in the next lesson. First of all, let's have a look. We want a type of Ilocation service. That doesn't exist yet, so I have to create it. Okay, let's go and create it. Now I know where to put this and I'll explain again next lesson why it's put there. I'll go to the ports right here, primary drivers, because that's where all my service interfaces belong. I'll add a new folder right here. I'll call it services again, just if we pop up with more types of ports later for the primary drivers. And here I'll add an interface called interface Ilocation service. Remember, it should be an interface, okay? I'll add this, and there we go. It's a public interface. Another very important thing that you guys need to remember to check is that it's public, because out of the box Visual Studio doesn't actually make things public, but internal. Okay, so make sure it's public, else you'll get problems later. That was the first step. Now we have it available, the new interface. Let's scroll down back to our test, because the test still can't recognize this one because we need to import it. We can't do that until we kind of have a reference for this project where it resides. So next thing, add dependency, add a reference for the port. Ka-ching, and it's this port down here. I'll say add, and now I should be able to import this guy. Boink! I have location service, and let's just call it service for now. Actually, location service is more precise, so let's give it that name. Sweet. That was first part of my test. That was to kind of explain that we have something of the type Ilocation service, right? Next step, let's do equals, and now we want to create a new location service. So we'll make a new location service. Notice that's not there yet, of course, because I'm running test-driven right here. Like this, it's not the test I'm building, it's a new class right here of the type location service. Let's add that one. So where does that need to go? Well, again, I know as a developer with my architecture, I know that this is where we put the interfaces in the ports, and the adapters, that's actually where we put the implementation of the interfaces. So here we'll add a new class of the type location service. There we go. I'll add this one, and now we just have a basic class in the adapters. And if you notice, there's where our location service goes, and if we go back, the name is location service test, so that's what we're testing. So this is the actual thing we want to test. Okay, back to the test, but we're still failing. Why are we still failing? Oh yeah, we are still failing. Two reasons. One, let's start with the first one. We don't have the dependency for that project. Let's add a new reference. We need a dependency for the primary driver adapters. Doink. Then we can import this guy. Yay! We're still not done. We still have a failure, because if you look right here, it says, I don't know that a location service actually has the type Ilocation service, because it doesn't yet. So let's go to the location service. Walk. Dong, 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 dong. Location service right here, boink. To do that, we need to kind of import, and you do like this in C#, Ilocation service. But now we need another dependency, because this guy needs to have a dependency to the ports as well. I know there's a lot of dependency, and as I said, there's a lot of plumbing in the beginning when you write this code, but it won't be again and again and again. It will only be while you write the code in the beginning that there'll be all of this plumbing. It'll be easier as soon as we've written our first test. Trust me. So let's go back to the location service. Now we actually have the second step done. So now that we have a location service ready with this type right here, all we need is pretty much to figure out the final part, which is the Ilocation repository right here. So I'll try to add that one as the final thing, because I need that repository. I need to pass that in right now as null, but later I'm of course going to start passing it as a real value. But I need to pass it in as null right now. So let's just create this final interface that we need. Go back to the Explorer, go up here and find the other set of ports right here, infrastructure ports. I'll add a new directory called repositories. Don't worry, I know there's a lot of things going on right here, but I will explain them to you as we move forward with diagrams and everything, and I'll talk about it in detail so you'll understand why I do what I'm doing. Today there's just a lot of plumbing right here, we just need to get that done. I right-click the repositories, I add a new class or interface right here, I paste in the name, Ilocation repository, I make sure that this guy is public, and then I actually go all the way down to my test again and add another dependency, because now I need to depend on that new infrastructure port right here on the core. I add that dependency. I go back to my code and now I can import it. Boink. I call that the location repository. There we go. And then I say equals null right now, just to get started. And let's just hide this. And now I can pass that in here, location repository. And that's pretty much what I needed to do, right? But notice I get an error again because this guy doesn't know about the location repository in the constructor. Let's just do that as the final thing. Just add that in here. And then next lesson we can try and dive into the actual exception. So go back to my code, go into my location service. And what we need to do is, of course, create a constructor right here. Now, what do I want to pass in? Well, I want to pass in the Ilocation repository. And again, of course, I don't know about that one. So I need to have another reference. For this primary driver adapters, I need a reference, of course, for the ports, for the infrastructure part. I'll add that one. Notice, slowly again, my code just starts growing, and I haven't even written any logic yet. It's just the plain code right here. Let's just import this guy, boink, and just write repository. Actually, location repository is a better name. There we go. Go back to the test. Everything works, right? Let's just hide this again. Everything works. Let's just try and rerun the test. What I did right now, and I know a lot of things just happened right there. Re-watch the video if you want to. What I did was I pretty much created some of the plumbing that I needed to get started with this architecture. I have the location repository. I have a location service as interfaces now. And I have an actual implementation class that we can actually start testing on for the location service. But notice, all of this was built because I needed it. Not because I want it and I know it, but because I needed it to start this test right here. So it was completely test-driven. Great way to work.